Hello, and welcome again to Tending Tuesday. Today what I'd like to share with you is something about the sense of calling, at least the reflections that I've been gleaning over these last number of months working with so many people. The sense of calling, the sense of destiny, the sense of my authentic personhood, different from the expectations that I have of myself or the expectations that others have of me. What is it that really moves through us? That authenticity, the sense of life purpose that's rooted in a deeper loam. Joseph Campbell reminds the call to adventure signifies that destiny has summoned. The call to adventure signifies that destiny has summoned. So let's unfold that. Let's unpack that just a bit. The call. We all have experienced it at times. Something shifts. We're out of the ordinary, the expected. We have a glimpse into a different sensibility, something that lives in the depths of who we are, our sense of belonging to something more than the familiar. And as I reflect on this, I'm remembering, in fact, my own sense of destiny. Indeed, when I was just beginning Pacifica Graduate Institute, just founding this institution of graduate education, I wasn't even thinking of graduate school. I was in a little two-bedroom apartment in Ala Vista and working with and formulating a community counseling center. When I went to Esalen Institute and met this man, Joseph Campbell, who I'd heard about but really didn't have a great deal of knowledge around, met with him, listened to his stories, listened to him talking, certainly in the lecture format, more importantly, during the lunch hours gathered around the table as he would talk more and more about the possibility that moves through each of us from a different realm of experience to that mythic dimension, that archetypal sense of story, and how each of us carries our own particular story to be unfolded in our own unique way. So for me, meeting Joseph Campbell at Esalen, how would I ever know that through the years he would come to Pacifica time and time again? I would become friends, for sure, with him and had the privilege of studying with him more and more deeply. And two, really gleaning and gaining his support. I would call him night, day, all during the times, and simply making inquiry about ideas that I was having, ways that we could formulate this new institution of depth psychological thought. A hint, then, still not really certain, though, as to what it is that is moving through me, not fully clear at that point in my early 30s. And then time goes on, and I started to gather the hints, really, the intimations, the sparks that come forward, that come through us, that move through us, that begin to inform a life story. Now, of course, the challenge is how to really walk that path, follow that particular journey when there is so much competing against that, right? Certainly the expectations of our parents and people that we grew up with, or our colleagues, or our peers, or the culture. I mean, there's lots of ways that people have in terms of telling us what they think we ought to be or how we should be going forward, of course. And then we, of course, ingest those and compound all that and triple it and quadruple it and create our own set of expectations. And we begin to play to an audience that is not unique to our own personhood, indeed, that is originating from something out there, other people, other expectations. Now, in saying that, of course, each of us, I, for certain, have obligations that are important, that are, cultivated from need and from necessity. Raising the family, administering an institution, evolving dream tending as an extended community. Of course, the publisher that I'm working with now on the new book, making sure that deadlines are met. I mean, there are external expectations, of course there are. And to something more. And that's what I want to uncover with you. That other, the call, that unique sense of being and belonging that really orients around our sense of destiny more than it does around external expectations or needs. So, how do we get there? Well, there's a number of ways that people have talked about, but what I'd like to do in this conversation is share with you an idea, a concept, a way of touching into, getting a glimpse of that sense of calling, that sense of inner journey that's unique to no other person other than each of us, to you personally. One possibility to consider is imagine that in the morning, before the needs of the day come flying in, before we engage in the manic pace of today's culture, before the cell phone is read or the computer is opened, before that, before all that, take a moment and just attune, breathe, deepen, That's that extraordinary time between dream time and awake time, that liminal place. We all know that space. We're rocked out of that really quickly. We know that place, however, just to be still there and attune differently. So that when we reach into the day, we're not coming out of the rational mind only, the mind that originates the list, that begins to create the demands that we place on ourselves, what we're going to accomplish this particular day, or the needs that need to be met, legitimately so. No, before that, that other place, the place of here now, attending to breath, to presence, here now. Okay, sounds easier than it is, of course. Here now. Taking those moments in the morning to breathe deeply, center, present. From that place, from this place, begin to gather the hints, as I said, the intimations, and reflect. In the last 24 hours, what unexpected or out of the ordinary event, circumstance, or experience occurred? And simply write those down. Maybe one, maybe two. What happened that was unexpected? Perhaps a surprise, not anticipated. It was out of the ordinary. And just simply write them down or doodle or make a small sketch. And then let me invite you into doing this for the next 5 days. In fact, for the next couple weeks. And you begin to collect a number of these out of the ordinary, outside of the margin experiences. In fact, as you're sketching, keep them in a particular place, in a notebook. Better to have something that's written, that you can work with your hands, not just the keyboard or the cell phone or perhaps something else. A journal's a big word, but certainly some paper. Because what I'm going to suggest is in 10 to 14 days, notice what begins to come forward. There's lots of different elements that are starting to present themselves. And if we attune in the morning and center in that place to begin with, like magnets they will attract other like-minded sparks of the unexpected, the out of the ordinary, right? They attract those to us. And it's those intimations that we want to bring our awareness to, our attention to. Because at the end of those 10 days, let's put them all out in front of us and notice how, in a curious way, they begin to create a pattern of some sort. How one invites the other. How one spark invites the other unexpected glimmer, right? And before we know it, we have, 20 of these unexpected pieces coming forward. And two, during the day, synchronicities. That means, like perhaps we had two things occurring at the same time, even in the dream time. A dream comes forward. Then an awake experience, oh my goodness, what happened in the dream just happened in the here and now. A synchronicity. an intersection happens. Let's pay particular attention to those intersections, those synchronicities. Why? Because the suggestion as that happens, consciousness shifts, right? Imagination opens, and we have a window into, a glimpse into our fate. That's what we're interested in. It's getting a sense of the life perhaps unlived, the road less traveled, the journey that's unique and particular to each of us personally, perhaps to nobody else. A different question comes forward here. It's not what am I going to do in the world? What am I going to contribute into the world? As wonderful and important, as extraordinary as those reflections are. But in addition to that, something else. What then is the world or that which is greater than us individually asking of us? Do you hear that different question? What's being asked? And perhaps it's in the patterning that connects when these hints begin to reveal themselves and present themselves back to us as if we're looking into a mirror, that we get a sense of what it is that's being asked of us. What is the life that's being asked that perhaps up to now has not been fulfilled? Okay, let me offer this to you. I'll tell you a couple things become so important. Community. You know, when we begin to gather the hints and we begin to experience what it might be like to go in a particular direction, a direction unique to us, how helpful is it to be in a community of others, like-minded people, that they too are gathering the hints, the notions, the ideas that are going to inform their way of being and belonging to an authenticity of purpose that's unique to their own personhood. Yes? Well, being in community is everything. Not only the community of people outside, but that inner community as well. And what I mean by that, you know, figures come in dreams and we have experiences that are so deeply felt. They evoke a sense of support, protection, guidance. Those figures are an inner community. Inner community, outer community. Whoa, how helpful it is. Any journey requires that, doesn't it? We need to prepare for a journey. We need our companions, our guides. We do. We need those kinds of inner figures that help direct and orchestrate. And two, it's helpful to have people on the outside, our mentors, our friends, our loved ones. They too can support us as we begin to look even more closely at perhaps that which has been pushing through us from the beginning, our unique sense of calling. The call is going out. The gathering, inner and outer, is happening. Let's support one another in taking those steps that allow us to deepen our personal experience of belonging to something more than a rational mind and external expectations. Let's take those steps with one another that allows us to recover, rediscover, experience our unique sense of calling.